Okay, a couple of days ago I painted some Mustang parts. My body man had repaired them, mostly rock chips from highway driving, some rock chips on the hood, a little bit of a tear in the back bumper, peeling paint. It's an '07 Mustang, so yeah, the paint's pretty old, plus some damage. And we're going to paint the parts off the car. The color code is G2. Most people call it Redfire. I like the color. It's a pretty color. What I'm using now is a off-colored red. It's not a matched color, but it's gonna make the G2 go a long ways. Most of your maroons don't cover real well, and it's extremely expensive paint at $175 a quart, so whatever you can do to get a good ground coat going and have to use less real color, the better off you are. So here I'm using the Technopro light with the TE10 LVOP air cap. It's only the second time I've used this air cap. I'm not sure if I dislike the way the color covers or whether I dislike the air cap at this point. So after this coat of off-colored base, I switched over to the HV30 HVLP air cap because I just wasn't quite sure of the transfer efficiency of the TE10, which was a big concern of mine on this job. Transfer efficiency meaning how much paint are you going to get on the car versus how much is going to go off in overspray. Right now I'm just trying to cover up the primer spots. That's the most important thing right now, because much of the panel is already the right color. The biggest problem with colors like this is when you have primer spots and you don't get good coverage, you'll see the edges of the primer through the paint. So I'm getting rid of the TE10 for the moment and putting on the HV30 because that's my trusted paint air cap. I know it a bit better and just more familiar with it. So I'm going to readjust the gun because the air cap changes the pressure settings and the way it sprays. Still trying to cover up that primer with the off color. I think I mixed JV, and JV is a sangria red. It's a Ford color, and a Toyota something or other maroon, just to get a good amount of maroon ground coat, all in Standox solvent base. So it's fine if you put an off-colored Standox ground coat underneath of a Standox real color. It's kind of late now that I'm I'm finally getting a chance to edit this video. It's 1 in the morning. Still trying to cover up the primer on the hood. As you can see, you can still see the edges of the primer, more so than the primer itself. That's the big giveaway if you got a transparency, is you see the edge of the primer. Even with almost a full pint of ready to spray off-colored base, I didn't have quite enough to cover the primer spots on even these two panels, and I haven't even gotten the rear bumper in the paint booth yet. Just ran out of off-colored base, so everything else has got to be done in the real color. Cleaning the gun out, make sure I have no off-colored color still in the gun. Now I got the rear bumper in the paint booth. Wiping it down with wax and grease remover like I did with the other panels. And I'm stirring up the real color right here. The can of paint there is ready to spray. It doesn't need any reducer. One quart ready to spray in Standox, $145. That's why you don't want to waste it. Same thing as with the off-colored. Just want to hit the primer for right now. As you can see, this color just doesn't cover well. Takes 3 or 4 coats just to cover up the primer. I see that little pigtail waving through that side marker opening, and what I did before I clear coated is I taped that down. There's one on each side, and I didn't want that thing getting loose while I was clear coating, so I taped him to the back side of the bumper. Covering up some sand throughs just with a light dust coat of paint. Not a full fan, just enough to get those spots. Tack ragging, tack ragging, tack ragging. I think I probably used about 6 tack rags just on these 3 panels. Red's a really messy color. I'm surprised my shoes didn't turn pink after doing this. The reason I slowed this part of the video down is I wanted to demonstrate how you're supposed to keep the gun perpendicular to the areas that you're needing to paint. That's important if you want to get most of the paint on the area you're trying to paint. That will also minimize transparencies. Spray directly at the part you're trying to paint. So far I've been using quite low air pressure with the HV30, somewhere between 16 to 18 psi, because all I'm trying to do is cover the primer spots. I'm not so worried about the metallic flow, metallic layout, or anything like that. I'll get that in the next 2 coats. I just want to get most of the paint on the panel for right now. Tack ragging like a mad housewife cleaning a living room. Even in the video I can still see primer through the paint at this point. I've sped up the tack ragging process for the most part because it's fairly redundant, but I did want to show it because it's very important to do. And you don't just tack rag before you apply base and then after you're done applying base. First full coat of real color. Still low pressure, but I think I probably upped the pressure 1 or 2 psi. Now I'm using my sun gun to see if I can see any more transparencies, checking the cubby holes and everything, edges, body lines, stuff like that, around the side markers. Any experienced painter would know where the trouble tends to be. There's a little corner that looked like it could use a little bit more color. Just looking with the light, hitting anything that I think might be transparent still. Not triggering the gun all the way, just enough to get paint on the problem areas. I don't see any primer edges yet, or any more, I should say, but I still want to put one more coat on everything. The rule of thumb is, when you think you got it covered, put one more coat. I did see a little bit of primer on the edges of the hood, so I'm going to go around the edges. Tacking again before the final coat, and this time I'll be using my full color pressure, I guess you could say 22 psi with the HV30. Not so worried about coverage anymore, but getting the color correct and the metallics to lay out properly. That's the purpose of this last coat. So I'll change my spraying technique just a little bit further away, a little bit quicker. At this point, you don't need to worry too much about inside the cubby holes because you've already got that. Another tack rag. I think I used 6 tack rags just on these 3 panels. Final color coat on the hood. Then we'll be ready for clear. One final coat on the back bumper since it was the last to get anything. Here I slowed the video down just to demonstrate that at the end of each pass, even if I go past the end of the panels, I still untrigger the gun. It's just a habit of mine. Waste less paint. And if you don't do that, and you don't go past the end of the panel, you'll end up with dark spots all over the place. So it's just the way that I paint, regardless. Final tack rag before clear coat, and it's a done day. I do the same thing with the clear coat as I do the base. It's just a habit. I untrigger the gun or let off the fluid at the end of each pass, regardless if I go past the panel or not. It's just a habit. I can't even help it. I actually have a hard time not doing that. I'm not gagging on overspray. I think I got a smoker's cough. Or maybe I thought of a good joke. Gotta follow the hose around, keep it from getting weaved in between the stands. On the final coat, I'll pay a little bit more attention to inside the cubby holes, but not for the markers and fog lights and stuff, and the bottom side of the front bumper. Here I'm demonstrating how you got to stay true to the angle perpendicular to the surface you're painting, both base coat and clear coat. It's just as important for each. The distance, the angle, and the speed should all remain pretty much the same.
fuck, man?
I think I was a little bit worried about running out of clear coat on the hood. I ended up making it exactly to the ounce without having to mix more. It's kind of hard to tell in these deck-ups liners how much you got left because they collapse. The only real way to tell is to disconnect the gun and hold it upside down and let the air back in the liner and count how many ounces you got with the built-in scale. I ended up getting in a little bit of a rush on the last half of that hood, overlapping a little bit less. So I thought I was going to run out of clear, and I almost did. It's high solids clear though, so it'll be fine. Sputter.